Okay, good morning, Earth. This is Adam Sturch, clearing his throat, broadcasting from Garage Art, Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting Rupture of Plane. Alright, today I'm going to start with this little blob right here. Where's my hand? There we are. Alright, somewhere, I can't see where I'm pointing. Fuck. Hold on. Alright, this spot here is going to be a head, this is going to be a torso, and I'm going to go from there. So here we go.
Like these feelings that I have for you. Nothing's forever, not even 5 minutes. When you're heading for the finish line. Down by the depot, out by the feed rack. Down by the tunnel surrounding the jails. Prisoners are marching squares and in circles. They're heading for the finish line. They're lining up and always off. They're standing trouble in the dark. Saluting the flag made of some rich guy's socks. Headed for the finish line. Close to the line, the ice is cracking. Two rented feelings sitting in the stands. Two mothers, two fathers, and both of them are paid for. All of a sudden it comes back to me. Just up ahead's the finish line. Two branded referees and two checkered rags. Out of the corner of my eye comes a dark horse with black wings. Ooh, heading for the finish line. I'm 5 years old, the room is fuzzy. I think there's also a very young girl. It's so hard to remember what happened exactly as I'm staring at the finish line. Ooh, first came fire, then came light. Then came feeling, then came sight.
that gets that figure pretty well set. I'm gonna pause it before I figure out what's next. Alright, now I'm moving to the upper left.
Shelter,
Right about here.
food, and body coverings. Now, I pray that those fathers who are here, those mothers who had to be fathers also, and every once in a while we find some fathers who had to be mothers also. Our Father, which art in St. Francis Hospital for hypertension. Our Father, which art in justice and prisons, federal detention. Our Father, which art in drop balls and alleys, lethal injection. Our Father, which art in now delusion. This cannot happen again. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. Hallowed be thy, state your name for the record. So is what I am, dear goddess. We make this retreat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now, dear goddess? We make this retreat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now, dear goddess? We make this retreat just for you, as an offering. Can you feel us now, dear goddess? We make this retreat just for you, as an offering. Can you feel us now? When I was young, I cried when I found out I couldn't have children. Soon after, I started rhyming, no one was nicer than me. I mean it, upstate New York. I learned the beatbox in my treehouse. Sounded good up there. Would you rather hear about guns and fear, or broken glass in a tenement? Should I rock to make you fear me now? Dear goddess, can you hear me now? Clear the way and prepare me now. Dear goddess, can you hear me now? Dear goddess, we made this great beat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now? Dear goddess, we made this great beat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now? I'm supposed to be less of an MC, cause I never sold a key. I sold my homework, but y'all niggas is too busy hustling to do the dome work. Now you can only run about how you're selling drum work on your cell phone, jerk. Please you topic. Damn, I'm supposed to be praying. I gotta stop it. Dear goddess, we made this great beat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now? Dear goddess, we made this great beat just for you, as an offering. Can you hear us now? Dear goddess, we made this great beat just for you, as an offering. An offering.
Tried to raise me, but had too many babies. Papa was a motherfucking joke. Used to find dope in his coat and nearly choke when he tell me not to smoke. Damn, don't get me started. My mama smoked so goddamn much when she was pregnant. I'm surprised I ain't retarded. At night I can't sleep, count deep as they pass through the glass of my neighbor's 5D. Staring at the wall, heard a scream. Wake up in the morning, see the blood in the hall from the murder scene. Don't cry. just ask why. And try not to die as I take you through a ghetto niggas lullaby. On the corner where the niggas sling they crack. And out in the cover strap. Those that don't watch they back. I daydream about the dope world. Take a puff from the blunt and watch the smoke swirl. My spur goes, comes another plug. Stash your drugs, pumping slugs in these other thugs. Don't run out of breath. Every step could be death to your blast and be the last nigga left. And now we go to cry, just ask why. And try not to die as I take you through a ghetto nigga's lullaby. Don't cry, just ask why. And try not to die as I take you through a ghetto nigga's lullaby. A deuce full of niggas goes by. Thought I was tripping the second time they rolled by. Recognize the plates, the faces look familiar. Everybody swear they know the nigga that's gonna kill ya. Don't murder me, kill a nigga in his sleep, let me die as I rest in peace. Deep back to these niggas in the 7 deuce. I'm 19, out the window, about to let it loose. What did I do? Run for cover and return fire. Die, motherfucking die, hope your ass fry. Don't ask why, but I let off everything I had. An empty clip hit the ground as a nigga dash. On my ass was the motherfucking cops now. Barely breathing, trying to keep from getting shot down. Was the snap bullet whiz by. Still running like a nigga got 9 lives. Don't know why, but I'm running to my fucking block. Took a shot, tired of running from the niggas and the cops. Time to be a ghost. And it will be ghosts. Don't cry, just ask why. And try not to die as I take you through a ghetto nigga's lullaby. Don't cry, just ask why. And try not to die as I take you through a ghetto nigga's lullaby.
I've been standing in this corner for a week, losing my religion. I feel like I'm talking in my sleep. I've been staring in a motherfucking mirror, trying to find a reflection of the exception in any kind of conception. Confessing I got the essence illuminated, fluorescent, finessing, forever stressing the problems in my possession. Potentially I could be one of the greatest poets living. My lack of confidence and compliments the former artist I compose a symposium, make control of the podium. Passive aggressive opinions never make a difference, so I just try to limit it. My flow is all this amendment. The fact that I will write into the pit begins to glisten, convincing people to listen. For instance, my intuition is telling me though I talk to the one within the vision, in addition to a church and confirming any suspicion that my vision was conflicted by a minor contradiction, and my mission was affected by an ingenuous message to tell me that I'm a impeccable rapper, like a professional worth the use of the deceive. I need a woman to breathe, I got voices in my head and they're refusing to leave. They're all speaking at once, my brain is so overpopulated. Piece of pen I put into the figure, this combobulated failure's not an accident, it's actually an action. It's the act of having opportunities to pass it with a lack of passion. You relax to imagine what you fabricated, fascinated. Why you take a break on the side, now salivated, aggravated, dedicated, talking like you put that position to really regulated. Records never resonated, this track is a revelation, amazing, illegible. That's the picture of my resignation. Say a word, I know I need serious help, but I'm just so depressed that lately I can't even help myself. All I think about is death. I said there's pain in my seclusion, no confusion, no suicidal. I've come to that conclusion. All I really needed was a little bit of time, and I've been talking to myself. I don't think I'm gonna be fine, and I've been trying to find what it really means to have a purpose. Whenever I feel deserving that I'm hidden, I've seen that you observe with your mind, body, and soul. They come and send out the ignorance that keeps you in control, and you the time to find your life away from all the things in life just to fulfill your appetite, despite the new habits of life. Everything I'm synonymous, synonymous over columnists, no respect for a novice. They only notice the novelist, prophetic from my legend, like my pen was ocean diamonds. Says I can't make any promise in the future of pedestrian. I miss unnecessary section for indigestion and calling your indiscretion, suggesting that my regression is better within the session. The topics that I'm addressing, necessity, the perception proceeding within a section. I've been in search of acceptance. I'm tortured with the verb of vernacular, my procedure, extracting your synesthesia with numbers of mind is so depressed and lately I can't even help myself. All I think about is death. I said there's pain in my seclusion, no confusion, I'm suicidal. I've come to that conclusion. Please don't ever confuse it, cause I'ma do it like a rapper never did it. When I finish the beat, to be in a critical condition, medical attention to the point that it never survives. A belly alive, it never revives. I'm buried with a very crucial crucifix. I'm losing my religion in the moment, and I'm praying for atonement of the sin that I committed in the past. To wash away all my pain, I'm finally free at last to relax.
Kind of twisted her torso a little funkily, but you know, anatomical perfection isn't what we're going for here. We just kind of want these ghostly, twisting, weird forms. So I think that'll work fine after I get it shaded, blended, and maybe even twist her torso visibly with the shadows that I develop as the painting progresses. But that's it for the moment. I'll figure out what's next. Here we go. Re-aim the camera here so I can think on it. Alright, now headed for the lower right. Here we go.
When we were born, like Elizabeth Spring Dow, who was born here yesterday, we come into the world, we come from being fully at home and feeling that release that comes. We have a little shadow of it when we come home at the end of the day, those of you that have a home, and put your feet up or relax or have a cup of tea or whatever that is, that feeling of coming home or coming to a safe space or feeling back at peace or at one. And when we get separated from that, and that separation, I want to keep reiterating, is created by the mind. That's what the basic issue of the ignorance that is the root of suffering that the Buddha keeps pointing out. The basic root of suffering is thought, the clinging of the mind to things which separate one from all of it. Now, once that separation has occurred, there is incredible pain. We can call it being thrown out of the Garden of Eden, we can call it original sin, whatever you want to call that. I mean, there are different metaphors within different systems. But there is incredible pain, and in some profound way, all of our actions henceforth are an attempt to return to that being, for me, under Maharaji's blanket, or in the heart of God, or in the hand, or being the one, coming back into the one. And we develop a whole set of techniques that we say make us feel good, give us a feeling for the moment of, yeah, ah. And some of those give us that moment so intensely, and the rest of our life is so much pain of our separateness and so devoid of that feeling, that once we find one of those things, for example, it might be a moment of sexual orgasm, it might be a moment of surfing when you transcend the dualism between you and nature, it could be when you're doing something like cooking, where you turn into just the joy of the process. It could be any number of things. That when that occurs, and it works, it reinforces the behavior, and you start to do that behavior more and more because it feels good. It takes away the pain of the separateness. And the use of drugs, the use of material possessions, the use of relationships, all of it, when you get busy and get obsessed with relationships and wanting to get closer and closer to somebody, it is trying to get to the place where you come back into that oneness. It's that yearning, and you can feel it permeate the universe of people's consciousness. So when you look at addictions from that point of view, you see that it's not like evil. It is just an attempt to get back. The problem is that most behaviors that get you back is like what Maharaji said about drugs. He said it will allow you to be in the presence of Christ, but you can only stay 2 hours. He said it would be better to become Christ than visit him. And that's what you find out with most addictive things, that they give you a short rush, but they don't allow you to remain at home. They just allow you the taste of it. And then the minute you get thrown out because you weren't wearing the wedding garment, the minute you go back to heaven but you can't stay because you didn't come in the right way, you end up feeling like I did something wrong, I'm bad. And then that starts a reaction of mind, so that you come down, then you feel guilt, I must be bad, I should have done something else. Why didn't I do the practices that would have allowed me to stay there rather than the thing that's short term? Because you see your predicament. What happens is that the opportunity for the immediate gratification, it's like what's called in psychology the choice of the little candy bar now or the big candy bar later. And with little children, they'll always grab for the little candy bar now because they want what they can get now. They don't have any delay of gratification. And spiritual practices compared to having sex or compared to taking Coke or something is more like delayed gratification versus immediate gratification. So when you start to stand back and see your predicament and see what you're doing, there is a way from a spiritual perspective in which you begin with that slight bit of awareness to extricate yourself from the chain of reactivity that we're talking about. The chain of reactivity that goes from I'm feeling this hunger, and then I'll go for the gratification, and then and then the coming down, and then oh shit, and then I should have done it the other way, and then I'm bad, and there's a whole chain of thoughts that go on. Every one of those is just keeping the whole process going. And as you develop the spaciousness, you start to look at where you can intervene in the process of the sequence that goes on. As the awareness gets deeper, you intervene at different places in the sequence. For example, the yearning, the hunger starts, and like for me, for example, I've had strong addictions to food, so that when I am feeling unloved, I'll eat, and I'll get fat. It's a pattern. And then I'll hate myself, loathing because of my body and so on, and I'll go through it. Now I understand the psychodynamics of that at one level, but let's take it from this point of view of the mind for a moment. The first place I began to intervene was when Manindra, my meditation teacher, said, Ramdas, don't you see that it's just old karma running off? And I began to break in at the point that after I had eaten too much to reduce my anxiety because my mother fed me food when I was upset, and I learned that pattern and all that stuff, I start to, instead of going into I'm no good and revulsion and all the sequence, I break the chain at that point, and then I just go back into my spiritual practices. Okay, instead of carrying out that whole sequence, I shortcut there. As the witness gets stronger, you start to go back in the chain further and further until as the separateness is starting to come and the feeling of hunger, and as you're about to eat, you start to notice the fact that you're about to do that, and your mind anticipates the whole sequence, and you, in a sense, begin to see the emptiness of the form you're about to take. Now, if you try to stop it too soon using your mind to stop it, there's a residual backlash from it. So, I hope I'm not condensing. I'm trying to give a lot of teaching very fast. I mean, as I understand it, as I've worked with it, that one develops a lot of patience and a lot of gentleness with oneself. And generally, when people come to me with addictions, I'm inclined to say, start doing spiritual practices. Start doing the studies that will allow you to see yourself in a new way, that will allow you to understand what that hunger is you're feeding in a new way, to just get a little different perspective on it. Don't worry about the addiction. It will fall away when it will fall away. And when you do it again, just notice it. And the line I always use, how poignant I am. How poignant the human condition. You know, I'm so gentle with myself. And what I have watched is the patterns of my obsessions and addictions have changed over time. There's no doubt about that. And yet I didn't deal with them directly head on for the most part. Because what you see is, and this is something that I'm sure I create a lot of waves in many people, including people that I love very dearly, that I'm close to. I see that a lot of the programs to deal with addiction end up creating a new addiction to being not addicted that is as bad as the addiction itself. That, I mean, when you meet somebody that says, I haven't smoked in 3 years, 2 months, 10 days, and 4 hours, you realize that their mind is as stuck as their mind was stuck in smoking. Maybe they won't die of cancer, but they'll probably die of uptightness. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but in general, I'm saying that dealing with things that are, which you're caught in, the minute you start to stop them, you invest them in a way. And so my suggestion is that you just keep cultivating the practices. And every time you don't, see, if I get up in the morning and I got up and I decided to stay in the dream state and not get up to do my sitting, that could start a whole sequence of, you're no good, you'll never get to God. But in the time I'm saying, you're no good, you never get to God, I could have been doing mantra. And when I realized, and I began to sit in meditation and watch the sequence of my behavior, I saw that all my recriminations didn't help anything in particular. They weren't really functional, except trying to make me feel comfortable with myself. And the better thing would be, the minute I notice that I've lost it, or I've gotten caught, or I'm stuck, or I just start to do something. Just pick up a holy book, do a mantra, think of Maharaji, whatever, sing a song. I mean, I'll start driving to town, and I'm going to give a lecture, and I start to get uptight. Okay? Oh my God, do I know what I'm going to talk about? You know, and it's a neurotic pattern. I know it from years back. I can give you a whole psychodynamic storyline about what that's about. I look at it, I think, there it is. At that moment, I start Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nija Manu Mukuru Sudari Barano Raghubara Bimala Jasu, and 6 minutes later, I'm in a different space than I was before. Now you could say from a psychological, that's denial, and you should work with that. But the fact is that thus far what's happening is it's getting less and less, and I'm able to hang in here now with very little of that old anxiety that used to be crippling. It used to be crippling. I've worked with some of it, but psychologically, but a lot of it is just, it's become uninteresting. It's just become uninteresting. And I just flip gears immediately. I flip gears. Because the minute you get lost in identification with your personality, to the exclusion of identification with your soul, right, that's what's happened. You've lost it. You've lost it. And there are 1,000 times each day you lose it. And if you get caught in your soul to the exclusion of your personality, you lost it equally as much. And that's the balance of us as human beings. Next question.
This has been quite a process. I keep asking questions and then I get my own answer.
Of course, that's all I am, is your own answer.
So I keep rewriting my question. No doubt if I sit with this question, I'll get the answer too. But my most current question is recognition that I feel like I'm in a codependent relationship with God. So what that means to me is that all the way that I know about relationship, about looking outside of myself and efforting and trying to get someone to want me and to love me and respond to me, that the way that I do that in relationship is basically how I see my relationship to God. And I don't feel like the way that my personality is organized right now that I can experience God coming back to me, wanting me and loving me and accepting me. It's just the dynamic that seems to be really strongly operating in me right now. And when I think about how to do that with relationship, I would say that my work is to pull back and to not be so outer focused and to let relationship come to me. But the question I have in relationship to God, it gets a little more nebulous. It's not very concrete. And I'm wondering how to be in relationship with God and what's God's part? What's his role? What's his responsibility to me to come into relationship?
I think you're demonstrating what you're saying, the way in which psychodynamics are reflected in the way in which we perceive the spiritual journey. And that you're writing the spiritual journey as a large version of what you're dealing with in the psychodynamics in your personality life. And there are a number of ways that appear to deal with what you're talking about. In understanding the dynamics of dualism, the dualistic practice of experiencing her as separate from you. Experiencing God as separate. You can project into that which is beyond all forms, any form you want. So you can project into it the form of a father, the form of a judge, the form of a rejecter, the form of a non-lover, the form of a caring person, the form of somebody reaching out, the form of somebody who's waiting for you to reach out. These are all projections of the human mind, because God is everything. So you're making of it what you wish. And it's, in a way, you're facing so much that you keep wanting to give it form, and the forms you choose to give it are based on what you need in symbiosis to your own needs and your own separateness. And so you always end up with a self-fulfilling prophecy of proving that you are not worthy and not enough and not, etc. And what I hear in it is the solidity of your identification of yourself with these particular psychodynamics. And so I can hear the way in which the mind is clinging to definitions of self. So in one way, if I were guiding you, I would give you meditation practices to help you
Tripod a little
extricate
bit.
yourself from such a strong model of who I am. Because that strong model of who I am only allows you to meet God in a way that is symbiotic or complementary to that particular model. So that's the filter through which you're meeting God. So the question is, do you loosen the filter? That would be one way of doing it.
Alright, so now they're starting to get pretty evenly dispersed. A little bit thin right there.
The fact that you are presenting
So I'm not
this
quite sure where I'm
question the
going to
way
hit
you
next,
are,
but
is
I'm having a
another
lot
way
of
I could
fun
do it.
playing the
See,
different
is to
expressions
say
and
that the person
directions
who's
of
presenting
gazes off of one another.
isn't exactly
If you've
the same
noticed,
person
you know, like this one's looking down at this one, which is looking over at this one, which
caught
is
in
touching
codependency.
this one.
It's somebody
with
who
these
is
two.
noticing the predicament.
Not really
And
engaged
what I would
that
like
much.
to do is align
But, you know,
myself with
this
that
one
part of you.
is screaming at
And
this
say that
one,
part of
this
you
one
just
is
notices
reaching
the
up
whole
for
way in which
this
you're
one,
doing what you're doing.
etc.
And
So
sits with it.
I'm having a lot of fun
And
with
says, "Look
that,
at
but
how I
as
am
the
reducing God
composition, the density
to
of the
that kind of
composition
a
elements
partnership."
increase, it's going to become
And
trickier and
because
trickier
I
to
keep
get in place
reminding
right.
us of the
So we'll see how it develops from
God,
here. I'm going to
Guru,
take a
and
minute
self are one and
and
the
figure
same
out where
thing.
the next spot is
So
going
in a way,
to go.
it's as
All right.
if... How many don't know the Uncle Henry story? Oh,
Alright,
okay.
this battery is running low, and so is the memory on this segment. So I'm going to do one more, and then do some transferring,
Assuming 10% aligning.
and then we'll pick this up in a little while. But I like...
Some years
what
ago,
was
we
I?
put out a
Yes, this space
6-record
right
album
here.
called Let's Serve Remember,
Sweep
with a
down under
beautiful
this guy's
brochure
neck
of
here.
pictures and artwork and a box, and the whole thing was sold mail order for $4.50.
Right there.
And it was really a beautiful production. We put a lot of love and attention into it. It had chanting and questions and answers and meditations and Third Patriarch of Zen and Gospel of John in it and stuff. It was wonderful. I loved it. And my father, who was president of a railroad at that moment, took a look at it and he says, "Impressive, pretty good quality." I said, "Yeah." He said, $4.50, that's pretty cheap. I said, "Sure is." He says, "You know, couldn't you charge more?" He says, "If you charge $10, would a lot fewer people buy it?" I said, "No." I said, $4.50 is what it cost us to produce, plus a reasonable return. He says, "But if you charge 10, would a lot fewer people buy it?" I said, "No, probably the same number." He says, "Well, I don't understand. Are you against capitalism?" And I said, "No." I tried to think of how I could explain that to him. I said, "Dad, you're a lawyer, and you've had a lot of cases, and I know that you take pretty good fees." "Damn right I do. I work hard." I said, "Yeah, you sure do." I said, "You remember last year you tried that case for Uncle Henry?" "Yeah." "You worked hard, didn't you?" "Damn right I worked hard." I said, "I bet you charged him a hell of a fee." He said, "Of course not, it's Uncle Henry." I said, "There's my problem. If you show me somebody that isn't Uncle Henry, I'll rip him off." That's the issue of right livelihood. That is the issue of right livelihood. That you charge what is enough so that you can look another human being in the eye as a member of the family and say, "That's a fair thing for you to be paying for this thing." And that's finally where you arrive at. And when I see myself not doing that, because the chance of, but I make them into an object in order to do that, I watch the horrible beauty of nature unfolding. I see myself doing that, and I'm just quiet watching it. And then I watch the karmic effects of it. And after a while, as I'm starting to do it, it costs too much. It costs too much. There are many people that come up to me and say, "I love you so much, can we go to bed together?" And the funny line that always comes up in me, not always, but most of the time, is... The funny line that often comes up to me is, "We can't afford it." Because the karmic effects of it will be too great, because the amount of attachment inside of us, the way we're doing it. Can you hear the issue? Next question. Yeah, exactly. Just be greedy. Yeah.
I had a question, but I got so obsessed with it, and I know that pattern, so I started doing the qigong's, and then I fell into a sleep, and in the dream you came in and told me I didn't need to ask that question, so.
Right, okay, so I took care of that one, that's great. I knew I could get through 3 groups in the morning. All I have to do is use astral. I cheat a little bit. Great story, great. She's a true addict. See, she's the proof the method works. Thank you. Who's next?
2 years ago, I left a relationship that you might say you performed the divorce here at Lama, and I left the relationship because the man who I was really loved very much was really a sexual addict and couldn't give up being with other women, and I went into my fear of being lonely and alone and have really gone through a tremendous transformation. And during that time, in the last 2 years, my life has become very full and I feel very connected to God, especially through nature. I have a lot of heart connections in my life, but the heart connection I'm yearning for has not manifested. And I have suddenly, in the last few weeks, come face to face with what I'm seeing as my own addiction, which is to connect in a loving way with a man and how I act that out sexually. And I don't know if there's a question in here, but it's more of a very painful dilemma in which I don't know what to do with the fire. And
I hear. I'm sure you're not alone in that predicament.
I feel alone in it.
No, you're not. Believe me. If you scratch the surface of many people, you find the same situation. There's 2 parts to the question: is how do we understand intimacy, and what do we do with our yearning for intimacy? And the other is, what do you do with the energy? Intimacy between 2 human beings has the potential of being one of the most evolved ways of coming into spirit and coming back home. The intimacy that occurs when 2 people share awareness, when they have transcended the boundaries of separateness for the moment, whether it's through sexuality or through the quality of trust and love that develops until there is this awareness that they both feel that they are holding together, they're present in and delighting in separateness, and yet the experience of unity is a very highly treasured quality in the human condition, and it is a path to God. What it is that's being yearned for is the feeling that is the product of the method. That is, what you're yearning for is that feeling of being peaceful, being at home, feeling warm, feeling safe, etc. The method of getting there is the relationship with another person. The relationship with another person isn't the end point. it's the process to get to that state of, yeah, that you're not feeling. So often the attachment to the method gets in the way of realizing the real thing about what the method was for, which is to feel that feeling of peace in one's being and at homeness and safety and softness and openness. And the kind of elaborate, when you start to work with sexual energy in relationship, the delicate line between where the sex is in the service of the love, or the sex is in the service of the increasing the oneness, when it goes over the line into the greed for gratification, or what's called lust, which is my need to use you to satisfy me, in which the person becomes an object, which takes you away from the place ultimately that you want to be. Although, see, this is can you hear the complexity of it? I mean, I'm playing with the edge of something, because what happens is when you use lust to get to God, I mean sexual lust with another person to get to God, you're using a method which separates you in order for the moment of transcendence, when you transcend the separateness. But because of how you got to there, the minute the orgasm occurs, you're back in your separateness again. And you're back in a cruel way, in an interesting way. I mean, there's a cruelty to lust, as many of you recognize, I think, as opposed to sex that comes out of a quality of deep attunement and oneness with another human being. And just why your last relationship came unglued, which is because you couldn't transcend the objectness that sex gave rise to, the feeling of, in a way, that your partner was more attached to that gratification, to the, well, let's strike this for a moment, let's not go that direction. See, the harsh answer, the harsh spiritual answer, which we in the West aren't able to handle because of our myths and our models and the way we deal with personality, is Ramana Maharshi's line about sexuality between people. He says, what is it when two bodies rub together?
And we've got
what is it?
a few minutes left on this, so.
And from that point of view, people only come together to procreate.
All right, let me think here.
That's it. It's the only reason from an involved sexuality. And what's interesting is you get to the point with another human being where you are so intimately with them in oneness,
and consider getting a bigger memory card for
that to come down into a practice, to come to oneness, takes you away
that's it for the moment. Alright, now headed for upper right again, a little lower.
I think most people are so entrapped in their mind that they don't even know they're entrapped. And that's the line of Gurdjieff that I quoted the other day.
I think that'll be alright.
He said, you don't realize your predicament, you are in prison. But if you would escape from prison, the first thing you must realize is that you're in prison. If you think you're free, no escape is possible. It's a far-out image. Most people do not have, they don't identify with the little blue space. They don't identify with the part of them that sees the predicament of the rest of them. They are just so busy being the reactive part of themselves, with their righteousness and their fear and their determination and their pity and all those kind of human emotions. They're so reactive, and so it fills all the space, and they never stop to reflect. They wouldn't think of meditating or reflecting. And they get up, and from the minute they get up, as they wake up, their mind starts to run its numbers, and they keep getting into the reactive thing. Oh, I've got to go to the toilet. I smell coffee. Oh, I've got to get up. I must remember to do my laundry. Oh, I forgot to call so-and-so. Oh, I want to sleep 10 more minutes. Oh, it's warm in that corner. What was I dreaming? And the mind starts, and it just feeds this continuous brrrr, like one of those hammers in the street. And it just goes all day until finally you just fall into exhausted sleep at night and then start the next day. And it's just mechanically running off, and there's no space in it at all. So that I think what is required, first of all, is the beginning of what's called awakening, which means the recognition that you are in prison. That's what awakening is about. And that recognition has to come in some way where you got a little whiff of the fact that there is freedom, that there's something other than what you're stuck in. Now, you say, well, that's grace. It's grace to recognize it, because in actuality, as I said earlier, everybody is having those experiences, but most people's minds are so strong, they interpret the experiences that would show them that there is freedom, they reduce them and interpret them in terms of their prison model. So they say, when they have an experience that would be transcendent, they say, I was out of my mind. That's a way of rejecting the thing. Do you hear that? Or in science, when you can't explain something, you say it's error. That means I can't explain it. Once you begin to awaken, then you have a little bit of leverage from which to see your predicament. Now, one of the ways that you can help yourself is by connecting yourself with other consciousnesses that will mirror for you the ways in which you're stuck. That can be books, it can be photographs, it can be the sangha or satsang or the community of other beings who are attempting to awaken. Because once you start to begin to awaken, you start to see people in a different way. When you were stuck totally in your mind, you looked at other people totally in terms of their relevance to your need systems. Once you begin to awaken, you're able to meet other people on two levels. One is within your need system, and one is that little bit of space around it. And the satsang or sangha or community is meeting those people in that little bit of space in the new perspective around the predicament of life. And then what happens is, once you meet such people in books or pictures or whatever, you then ask them in one way or another to help you. Like when you take the words of Christ, or the words of the Buddha, or the words of Ramakrishna or Ramana Maharshi, or any of the wonderful great beings that have lived through history who have made the mystical journey, their words, just reading their words, is like reminding you and showing you how stuck you are. It's mirroring for you your stuckness. And just sitting with that mirroring and sitting with that space and sitting with those friends who tell you you're stuck, that process is constantly working to dislodge your staying within the stuckness. And it's helping you start to let the stuckness start to lose its solidity and thus crumble a little bit. Of course, the problem is that the way in which you're stuck so fulfills your need for security, because even though you're stuck, it's home.
I mean, even your neuroses are familiar. You know, I'd rather have a familiar neurosis than be out there, you know, like flying. You know? So what we So seeing your addictions of mind to this is who I am and this is how the world is not just, it doesn't just drop away because you see it, because there's still a lot of juice to holding it. There is a readiness for letting go of things. And the word that is used often is viragya, or the falling away of worldly stuff. There is a place where it isn't worth holding on to any longer. And you're then open. It often is required, there's despair involved in that. There's despair of finding yourself so trapped. And sometimes the despair is great enough that it opens the door for you. It is true that what most people do is that they substitute immediately a new structure to feel safe in for the old structure they got rid of. And the only thing you can hope is that the new structure will be taken on from a place. See, most of the structures that you have about yourself and the world were developed in your preconceptual time, between the time you were, say, 6 months and 15 months old. That's when the basis was laid down for the whole game of your ego. And so they are emotionally learned structures. They are not conceptual. Initially, the rational mind didn't mediate it. When you learn something rationally, you can unlearn it more easily than when something is learned emotionally, because when it's learned emotionally, you can't get at it. So that therapy has a very hard time getting to those extremely early learnings that happen, which were laid down so powerfully. So what you're doing when you take on a new structure is you're taking it on conceptually, intentionally, and so it is easier to let go of later. And then you use that new structure and keep moving yourself into the new structure, and then, like, when you have felt I am no good, you then can feel I am good. And you can use I am good to dislodge I am not good, but then I am good has to fall away, because that's just another place to stand if you want to be free. Because free is neither good nor not good. Free is just free. So you get help from your friends, a little help from your friends.
Maybe not.
Whether it's books or people.
Okay, well, that sets that figure up. I'm going to stop it here and we'll see what happens next. What time is it? I still got plenty of time. I got here early today, so this might be a long process if I do a few more sessions.
They drive you to think what you would not think.
Alright, now going for middle left,
enterprise of human history is nothing more than the fallout created by strange ideas. You know, let's build a pyramid, let's build a windmill, let's build a water wheel, you know, and then empires, philosophies, religions arise in the wake of these situations. I've argued in the past, and I'm going to try not to repeat it here today because I think we've all heard it, but I will just mention it in a sentence or two, that the critical catalyst propelling us out of the slowly evolving hominid line and caused us to take an orthogonal right-hand turn into culture, language, art, yearning, probably was the inclusion of psychedelic plants in our diet during that episodic moment when we went from being fruitarian canopy dwellers to omnivorous pack-hunting creatures of the grassland. And it was the inclusion of psilocybin in our grassland diet that caused us to discover that there is a mind, and you can perturb it. I mean, think about, I don't think you could discover consciousness if you didn't perturb it, because as Marshall McLuhan said, whoever discovered water, it certainly wasn't a fish. Well, we are fish swimming in consciousness, and yet we know it's there. Well, the reason we know it's there is because if you perturb it, then you see it. And you perturb it by perturbing the engine which generates it, which is the mind-brain system resting behind your eyebrows. If you swap out the ordinary chemicals that are running that system in an invisible fashion, then you see it's like dropping ink into a bowl of clear water. Suddenly the convection currents operating in the clear water become visible because you see the particles of ink tracing out the previously invisible dynamics of the standing water. The mind is precisely like that, and the psychedelic is like a dye marker being dropped into this aqueous system. And then you say, oh, I see. It works like this and like this. Well, if psychedelics are catalysts for the imagination, and if history is driven by the imagination, it is driven through the fallout from the imagination, which is technology and culture. Technology and culture are the consequences, the derivatives of the ratiocination of the mind. And technology has, like biological life, but on a much faster or accelerated time frame, technology has this weird tendency to transcend itself, to bootstrap itself. You know, if you have a cart, then it implies better wheels, better bearings, better structure, and then higher speed, more control, more feedback from the machine. That means we need gas gauges, RPM readouts, so forth and so on. Technology, strangely enough, created by a biological creature, has itself this self-transcendent quality, but ever accelerating. This is the important point, because the ever accelerating accretion of technology means that history is strangely foreshortened at the future end, because it happens faster and faster. It's like a process that begins very slowly, but once started has the quality of a cascade. The rate at which falling bodies move, 32.5 feet per second. Each second it accelerates to twice the rate of infall that was occurring in the previous second. Technology is like this, and we now are in a domain where if we attempt to propagate technological development forward 50 years, it becomes unmanageable as an intellectual task. We can talk about the automobile, what it might look like 50 years from now. It would float, it would go 500 miles an hour, it would be guided by your mind, so forth and so on. These kinds of ideas. But when you think that every artifact of our world will undergo that kind of transformation, and that the synergy among these transformed objects will create phenomena and situations that we can't anticipate. That's the key thing. our inability to anticipate the synergies between our technologies. I mean, the computer, LSD, spacecraft, holograms, organic superconductivity. Those are just 6 areas where the integration of those concerns will produce unimaginable consequences. Yeah. The ultimate boundary dissolution is the dissolution of ego. I mean, we straight people hope that they never meet it except at death. Of course, they don't realize that going to sleep at night is a kind of ego dissolution. But the government is expressive of this dominator culture that we're living in. The ego is a very recent invention, and its hold on reality is very tenuous, and consequently it walks around imbued with fear. I mean, it feels itself to be a mouse in a world of dinosaurs. That's because it's a very recent development. I guess I have to go back to this scenario of human development and say, just very briefly, here's how I think this worked. I'm not going to run through the whole evolutionary scenario, but this thing about ego. All primates have what are called dominance hierarchies. That simply means that the hard-bodied, long-fanged young males kick everybody else around. They control the females, the children, homosexuals, the elderly. Everybody is taking orders from this dominance hierarchy. And this is true clear back into squirrel monkeys. It's a generalized feature of primate behavior. And it's an aspect of our behavior as we sit here. Women, the feminine is not honored. The elderly are marginalized. Homosexuals, that whole issue. Many of our social and political ills stem from this attitude. Well, but you see, I believe that when we left the trees and admitted psilocybin into our diet, that it has the effect of dissolving boundaries and making this maintenance of the dominance hierarchy very, very difficult. First of all, the key on one level to maintaining the dominance hierarchy is monogamous pair bonding. That's where it begins. If in a society taking a lot of psilocybin, monogamous pair bonding breaks down because of CNS activation and sexual arousal. So in a psilocybin-using culture, there will be a tendency to orgiastic sexual behavior rather than monogamous pair bonding. What that does is it causes an incredible social cohesion, because in an orgiastic society, men cannot trace lines of male paternity. So men's attitude toward children is, these children are all ours. We, the group. It's a glue that we, in our paranoid social style, with everybody having the deed to their property and their 11-foot high fence, can hardly imagine. But psilocybin was artificially suppressing this dominator behavior style in the primate, the evolving proto-hominid, now human being. When psilocybin was taken out of the diet, the old primate program was still there. It had not been bred out. The genes were always there. It's just that for 50,000 or 100,000 years, we medicated ourselves, literally religiously. We religiously medicated ourselves, every new and full moon, perhaps oftener. These orgies were happening, creating social cohesion, propagating everybody forward. The problem was, when the psilocybin was taken away, we had been under its influence for perhaps 500,000 years. We had evolved language, rudimentary abstract philosophy, a sense of religion. We had invented technology in the form of using fire and chipping flint and all that. The psilocybin goes away, and suddenly these skills, these tools, these technologies are in the hands of marauding apes, not anymore cohesive, caring human social groups, but marauding territorial apes, driven by the desire to control all weaker members of the social group. And that's our circumstance. We have, the tools that would allow us to sculpt paradise, but we have the reflexes and value systems of anthropoid apes of some sort. So the split between our conscious hopes, our best foot, and the bottom of the human scale is appalling. I mean, look at the spread. It's a spread from from Mother Teresa to serial killers. I mean, you don't get serial killers in the chipmunk population or the grasshopper population. I mean, these animals are not so set at variance with their basic nature that these kinds of pathologies can erupt. We, on the other hand, are half angel, half pack-hunting killer ape. I mean, we're an object fetish society. I mean, our entire psychology is characterized by a profound discontent. That's what we're about. It doesn't matter, no matter what's going on, after a little while, we get restless and move on. Other animal species are embedded in a kind of world of endless genetic cycling. No fox grows bored with hunting, and yet our thing is a profound dis-ease, and I believe it's because, and slowly you forced me to do this whole rap, which I swore I wouldn't do, I believe it's because the psilocybin led us halfway toward a kind of Godhead, but then it disappeared, and we are left in this very peculiar situation. This is the myth of the fall. We are half angel, half beast, and these two natures are united in every one of us. And when you take psilocybin, you feel generally a great sense of community and ascent to a higher level. If you completely restrict your intake of intoxicants of any sort, then you get the teetotaler type personality, which is characterized by incredible smugness, limited intellectual horizons, and an unbearable aura of self-congratulation that makes it pretty hard for the rest of us to put up with. Yeah. See, here is the final piece of this evolutionary key. Psilocybin, in small amounts, increases visual acuity. This is not an arguable
so that's
point.
the next one.
Give people psilocybin and give them eye
back
care.
out.
And people with astigmatism see
Figure
better.
out what's next.
You can quantum mechanics need for
now
an
headed to the
observer
lower middle left.
as part of any system. That's big news for our field of study, because what it means is hallucinations are as real as anything else. I mean, a hallucination is not like a Chevrolet, but on the other hand, a Chevrolet is not like a hallucination. Why should we demand that these things co-map over each other? A hallucination is a species of reality, as capable of teaching you as a videotape about Kilimanjaro or anything else that falls through your life. The question is, does DMT talk to you the way psilocybin does? It's interesting that these two compounds, so closely related to each other, both have something to say about language, but they say it in precisely opposite ways. Psilocybin, it's a teaching voice that speaks to you in your language. I had a very interesting experience that was an example of this to me. When I first started growing mushrooms, I had to do a lot of batch testing. And so I was taking mushrooms a lot. And I would get into these places with it where it would say, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da says, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da says. It would make these declarative statements, and then it would always put the word says on the end of the sentence. I thought, weird, but what do you expect of a talking vegetable? What's weird and what isn't? So then I heard Watson's publication called Maria Sabina and her Mushroom Velada. It's a set of 6 tapes of a mushroom session that Maria Sabina did in 1956. So here is Maria Sabina raving in Mazatec, and it's going along like this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, suh, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, suh. And I look in the interlinear translation, suh means says in Mazatec. So she's hearing it in Mazatec, I'm hearing it in English. So that's what psilocybin is capable of. What happens with DMT is that it doesn't speak to you in English. It speaks to you in Elfish, and you understand. And under sufficiently hyped up conditions, you are able to reply. In other words, psilocybin pushes your brain state towards some kind of spontaneous glossolalia. And I think that this probably is mixed up with the generation of language itself. Because what happens on DMT, on high-dose DMT, is these machine elves, these dribbling basketball things, they use this musical sing-sang-song language to make objects, which they then show you. They're like machines or animals or crystals or crosses between, I don't know, consomme and something else. They have these opalescent depths. They're neither matter nor mind, neither solid nor liquid, but they make these things and set them loose in this environment. And these things themselves are emitting language and making other things. So they make machines which make machines. Everybody's chattering, squeaking, crawling over each other, clamoring for your attention. And what they're trying to do is to get you to produce this glossolalia. For some reason, which I cannot imagine why, when you're stoned and you do the glossolalia, it's an incredibly pleasurable experience. But so might be eating an orange or having sex if you were to do it at that moment. You can't tell. But you can make this funny pseudo-linguistic stream of syllables that's very, very satisfying. And, it has a bit of art in it. I think probably we invented language long before meaning, and that it was some very practical person who got the idea that the music could have words, and that before that it was simply verbal amusement. After all, the most readily at hand musical instrument is the human voice. I think that language as we practice it this afternoon in this room is an uncompleted enterprise that language wants to be visual. It is in transition. Remember, it's from the silence of prehistory to the visual language beyond the eschaton, and the overlapping of silence and visual language gives you audio language. The more perfect logos would be beheld. This is what Philo-Judaeus taught. And considering that many of these psychedelic compounds involved in the language phenomena, like DMT and harmine and harmaline, these all occur as part of human metabolism, ordinarily. And I think that it's possible that we are on the cusp of an evolutionary transformation of language having to do with an actual change in our physique, in our genetic output. Because why is it that monoamine oxidase inhibiting compounds like harmaline, specifically 5-methoxy tetrahydroharmalan, occurs in the pineal gland? And is the pineal gland has always been thought of as somehow connected to the soul. It was the seat of the soul for Descartes. And I think that maybe what history is the rather muddled situation that occurs in an animal species while it perfects a true language. And that we are not there yet, folks, because a true language is beheld. I think that the real nub of what we're trying to get at here is that the world is mental in some way that we do not yet understand, but that which we're edging toward understanding. And the world is made of language. I can't say that enough. And so whenever we get into these discussions about reality or effects in space and time, we are operating outside this assumption that the world is made of language. If the world is made of language, it's very hard to figure out just where the edge of it is. I mean, do we really need to believe in the existence of distant galaxies like NGC 245 if, in fact, the world is being produced in the human cerebellum as a phenomenon of language? What exactly is the ontological status of these distant parts of the universe that register only as the faint tracings on our instruments, then interpreted through the fishy fiat of a bunch of stacked up theories and formulas? I mean, did you know that the entire universe of radio telescopy, radio telescopes were invented around 1950. They've been used to build up our entire picture of the universe. Did you know that if you took all the energy that has fallen on all the radio telescopes on this planet since the invention of radio telescopy, that it would be less energy than is generated by a cigarette ash falling a distance of 2 feet?
All right, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to do next, so I'm going to stop it here.
Is coming from that you invent oligarchy. We didn't do all these things.
Okay, now headed upper middle right.
About how we didn't do it. It's in your face, and it's clearly a crisis.
This may be
of two things:
the last
of
session for the day,
and of conditioning.
so we'll see.
These are the two
we got 20
things
minutes
that
left
the
on this memory.
psychedelics attack.
Good.
We have
I just kicked my
the
flashlight.
technological
That's
power,
all right,
the
stop
engineering
wobbling.
skills to save our planet, to cure disease, to feed the hungry, to end war. But we lack the intellectual vision, the ability to change our minds. We must decondition ourselves from 10,000 years of bad behavior. And it's not easy. I mean, imagine, I don't know how many of you have ever confronted the fact that you were addicted to something. And some addictions are really serious. If you've ever been addicted to tobacco or heroin, I'm sure you know what I mean. Well, then imagine a global population addicted to a drug, the use of which is killing us, but we can't, there's no doctor saying you should, there's no rehab clinic to go to when you're a species. We are on an absolutely destructive bender that will end with the death of the earth, the impoverishment of its animal and plant population, and the collapse of our civilization into scarcity unless we can somehow restructure our psychology and get hold of ourselves. And psychedelics are the only thing I've ever seen work on an individual level to do that. In the early 60s, they were curing 75% of chronic alcoholism cases that they treated with LSD. They were curing with one dose of LSD, one 500 microgram dose. Well, now obviously, LSD is not a magic bullet for alcoholism. That's a preposterous idea. It's simply that you take LSD, and if you're a chronic alcoholic, you review your life, and you notice that you're killing yourself. And then you say, my God, I am killing myself. If I don't stop what I'm doing, I will be dead. That's the strongest motivation to character rehabilitation there is. And that's what we have to carry into the domain of public debate. I can't believe how constipated American institutions are. I mean, here we are, under the aegis of a great crusading reformer from Arkansas. A new order in human affairs has dawned, but they suggest closing an air base out at Sacramento, and their editorials as to whether we can survive the shock of this massive change. Well, I've got news for you. You better do your change-related calisthenics if that was heavy lifting, because what you've got coming at you is something very, very different. We are now in a position to actually make something of ourselves, extend the design process to human destiny, and produce something that will redeem 10,000 years of pogrom and migrations and attempted genocides and pointless wars and stupid religions that make people hate themselves and all the rest of it. If we're going to redeem that legacy, then we have to do something quite spectacular. Okay, now, I will talk a little bit about what I've learned from psychedelics. I feel self-conscious doing it, but on the other hand, wouldn't it be stupid for me to talk about what you've learned from psychedelics? That would add presumption to the sins already arrayed here. There are different models about what the psychedelic experience is. Here's a couple. Building on Western psychotherapy as elaborated by Freud and Jung, one view of what psychedelics are is it's the part of your mind that you'd rather not do business with. It's the memories of childhood neglect or abuse. It's repressed kinky fantasies. It's, in other words, the Freudian idea of the unconscious, that somehow these are drugs which dissolve the boundary between conscious and unconscious mind, and then you can do accelerated psychotherapy because resistances have been pharmacologically overcome. That's one model. It's good as far as it goes. It just doesn't go far enough. Then there's another model, which I would call the traditional or shamanic model. And it says the cosmos is a series of levels, and these levels are connected by vertical routes of access, which can be thought of as simply flights through space, or magical trees, or magical ladders. Anyway, there's an image of ascent. And ordinary people exist on only one of these levels. But a shaman is not an ordinary person. A shaman is a superhuman person who has the power of animal allies behind them. And they can go up and down in these elevators that move between levels, and they can therefore recover lost souls, see social hanky-panky, theft and adultery, see the causes behind that, see the causes behind disease, so forth and so on. That would be the traditional one. What I have concluded after 25 years of fiddling with this is that both of those ideas have a certain something to recommend them, but that they don't go far enough, and that we get more to the meat of this if we leave off psychological, the first explanation, or sociological, the second explanation, and actually go for something a little more formal, to wit, a mathematical model of what shamanism is. And what I mean by that is, let's think about what shamans do. They cure disease, and another way of putting that is they have a remarkable facility for choosing patients who will recover. They predict weather, which is very important. They tell where game has gone, the movement of game. And they seem to have an paranormal ability to look into questions, as I mentioned, who's sleeping with who stole the chicken, who, social transgressions are an open book to them. Well, thinking about this from a mathematician's point of view, an all-encompassing explanation that would explain how all these magical feats are done is simply to suppose that the shaman is somehow able to project his consciousness, his or her consciousness, into a higher dimension. Not metaphorically, as in Sylvester Stallone has many dimensions. Not metaphorically, but literally, as in 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, and 4. Because if you could move into the 4th dimension, the dimension orthogonal to Newtonian space-time, seeing what the weather is going to be next week is as easy as seeing what the weather is now. Seeing where the game went is as easy as seeing where the game are. Knowing who stole the chicken is simply defined by looking to see who stole the chicken. And I have noticed that all of biology, not simply shamanism in the context of human
that's not
society,
too bad for a day's
but all of
progress.
biology
My back's getting a
is,
little
in
stiff,
sense,
and I'd kind of like
a
to
conquest of
play a video game
dimensionality.
a little bit for the end of the day and sit down.
The phylogeny of organic life,
There we go.
what animals are
Alright.
a strategy for conquering space-time. And
Alright,
complex
let's do
animals do it
and
better
over
than
and
simpler
across
animals.
kind of
And we
thing
do
real
it
quick.
better than any complex animal. And we 20th century people do it better
So what do we
than
do
any
today?
people in any previous century, because we can bind data
this scene up here
in so many
happening.
ways that they couldn't electronically, on film, on tape, so forth and so on. So the
Aperture's kinda
progress
getting
of
dicey on me.
organic
Hold on
life
one
is
second.
deeper
Let's see
and
if I can
deeper
brighten that
into
up a bit.
dimensional conquest. Well, from that point of view, then, the shaman begins
There
to
we
look
go.
like the advance guard
Alright, so we
of
got
a
this scene
new
happening.
kind of human being. A human being that
This
is
scene
as
happening.
advanced over where we are as we are advanced over people 1 million years ago. Because we have very elaborate strategies for coding the past. It's a dimensional conquest. So that's part of what I've learned about psychedelics. And I could have left it there, but I never do. I always want to bring more in under the umbrella of whatever metaphor it is that's being pushed. And what I have discerned is that time
Alright, so that's it for the day. Thank you for watching. That's Adam Sturch broadcasting from Garage Art today. Working on oil painting Rupture of Plane. Have a good night.
Physics tells us that the universe is an